to walk the path of God doesn't enter into his heart. He knows full well that every time he puts his hand in the fire, it will burn. Yet still he does it. Not only so, he uses every inducement to encourage others to do the same and regards that man as crazy who desists. If you have the craving for fleshy enjoyments or the slightest desire for name and fame, you cannot reach God. As Nagamansha used to say, it is like trying to row an unanchored boat. He also used to say, it is easy to get name and fame, but only is he who can renounce them. Hold on for a little. Do not give your mind up to objects of desire. You must exercise great self-control in everything. Objects of desire, they will follow you like slaves. Then through His grace, through God's grace, you will find you have no desire for them, nor will you feel any attachment to them. So effort must be your motto if you want to grow spiritually. Keep watch over every small desire which arises and control it. During meditation, think that desires for worldly things are worthless. This will leave a good impression on your mind. As you drive away the desires from your mind, good thoughts and feelings will come up. One can have that much desire as is absolutely necessary for self-preservation. The main object of self-preservation is to be able to call on the Lord wholeheartedly and to do works in His service. That's all. Renunciation means doing away with the three foremost desires. According to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, the desires for progeny, wealth and popularity. A devotee accepting the dualistic view renounces all desires except the desire for God. He alone is to be desired in life. The desire to realize Him is not really a desire at all. It will not do to have mere external renunciation. One must eradicate from one's very mind any desire for lust and gold. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, one must set fire to one's desires. Then only can one succeed. Then about the control of the senses, Dhamma, which you talked earlier. Several guidelines have been incorporated in our spiritual works. Some of them may appear to be extremely difficult to follow by everyone, more so in the present circumstances when they are surrounded by temptations. For instance, it is easy to advise a person to avoid worldly pleasures beyond the limit. No one can easily conquer the influences of the senses. But what is intended to focus is that there should be moderation in one's habits. Moderation. His quest for enjoyment should be within bounds. For instance, consuming some prohibited food will kindle the animal instincts in man, and hence he is asked to refrain from such types of food lest he should turn beastly. There are restrictions on the natures of one's diet, and when a man confines himself to them, his behavior will be found to be gentle and soft. Any act of enjoyment of any kind that exceeds the normal standards will result in calamities. To explain the repercussions of such deeds, an illustration is given. A bird in need of food, after search for a long time, spotted a carcass floating in the ocean, and it sat on it, started pecking its prey. In the process, it became oblivious of time and place and ultimately found that the dead body had drifted from the shore. Tired and unable to fly back, it perished only to become prey for other birds. Man, claiming to possess the rare faculty of thinking and conducting himself in accordance with the moral code, should be judicious. No one asks him to totally abjure worldly pleasures, but he should not become an animal, but justifying that no harm will result out of his dangerous activities, defying spiritual injunctions. For having coveted his brother's wife, Vali, in the Ramayana, was duly punished by the Lord, who descended in human form to re-establish moral order. Hanuman had the power to have dealt with him, but he was not assigned that task. A similar restraint was displayed by Bhima in Mahabharata while dealing with the wicked forces when Draupadi was being insulted. But he left it to the Lord, who had come as Krishna, to punish the culprits and save the honor of his devotee. The law of righteousness should be strictly adhered to by studying the sacred text, in which numerous instances of how God had extended his grace and have been portrayed. If the rules are discarded, the violator will be caught in the cycle of rebirths. So we have to know how to control all these things, and you must become master of the senses. That is, you must control how to manage and monitor the play of the senses. Ordinarily, we are guided by the activities of the senses, but we must monitor the guidance properly so that we can focus with calmness on the divine's goal. Most important is, as has been pointed out, controlling of the mind. And the spiritual teachers have explained the function of the mind, how it behaves, in a very interesting way. This situation may be likened to that of a person with many wives. Uttanapada, you must have heard the Dhruva story, had 2 wives, and because of the differences between them, the child Dhruva had to go to the forest to perform penance. Dasarath had 3 wives. To comply with the demands of his youngest wife, Dasarath had to endure the departure of his dearest son Rama to the forest. If such difficulties can arise for those having 2 or 3 wives, imagine the plight of one who has to manage 10 wives. And now comes the point. The mind has 10 wives. What are they? 5 sense organs and 5 organs of action. These are the 10 wives. Each organ seeks to enjoy objects of its own choice. The nose smells some good edible and wants to have it. The ear hears some sweet music and wants to enjoy it. The eye hankers after a new film. When all of them are keen about their own particular desires, how can the master, the mind, satisfy them all at the same time? Unable to satisfy them, the mind gets frustrated. How can one wedded to 10 wives get peace? It is only when the senses are kept under proper control that man should be happy himself and share that happiness with others. So, the spiritual teachers tell us to cultivate equanimity to control the senses. There is a method by which the demands of the senses can be reconciled and harmonized. This is by treating both good and bad with equal-mindedness. Samatvam. Samatvam yoga uchyate, Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. There are people who display such equanimity. There is a famous episode. Sant Tukaram, he was very notable, saintly person. In fact, it is said in his life, during his hour of death, the chariot came from the heaven to take him to the abode. Bodily, with this mortal frame he went. And he called his wife also to come, but the wife delayed. By the time she came, the chariot already had left. Anyway, so he was a saintly person, but his wife was of a different nature. By his calmness and forbearance, Tukaram managed to get on with her. Once Tukaram was bringing home in his cart the sugar cane crop harvested from his small farm. As he was going home, the children of the village gathered round him and pleaded for a piece of sugar cane. Tukaram was a very kind-hearted person and he loved children. In his boundless goodness, he allowed the children to help themselves to the cane on the cart. By the time he reached home, there was only one stack of cane left. Seeing this, his wife became very angry. She abused him and taking out the cane, struck Tukaram with it. The cane broke into 3 pieces. So you can imagine what a strong blow it should have been. But do you know the Tukaram's reaction? He calmly remarked, I was wondering how to distribute this single remaining cane to the members of the family. He has solved the problem. We can keep 1 piece and give the other 2 to the children. He had 2 children, so 3 pieces are distributed properly. No. Such forbearance and equanimity can be found only in a very rare, high-souled persons. These qualities can be acquired only through great devotion and great faith. You need not feel disheartened at the prospect of being unable to control the senses. By developing the one-pointed devotion, the senses can be brought under control. There is another example, Kabir Das. They are all living examples how they lived the life of spirituality. They are shown to us spiritual life is practicable. Don't simply imagine, oh, spiritual life is not possible. Don't have that notion. It is possible. His wife was highly devoted and faithful, totally dedicated to serving the husband. One day, Kabir was playing his loom, chanting the name of Ram all the time. Continuously, non-stop, he would repeat Rama's name. Suddenly, he called his wife and said that one thread had snapped and asked her to bring a lamp. It was noon, and when she brought the lighted lamp, Kabir told her to take it away as it was not necessary. She silently took it back without any argument. With such a beautiful wife, Kabir was able to develop his devotion and express his gratitude to God for his grace. So, there is a lesson to be learnt in sense control. Here there are 2 examples of saintly persons who, despite their different family situations, pursued their godly ways equally well. It is not the environment that matters, it is the purity of our impulses which count. Don't worry about the external environment. The ancient sages regarded sense control as a form of penance. Disciplining of senses calls for an understanding of how the senses function. A Christian priest learnt a lesson in sense control from the driver of a horse carriage in which he was travelling. The priest noticed that the driver was beating the horse severely as it was approaching a railway crossing. Taking the pity on the animal, the priest asked the driver why he was beating the horse unnecessarily. The driver explained that at the level crossing there were some white painted stones which caused a fright in the horse. He was beating the animal as the horse was more afraid of the whip than the white stones. The priest learned that diverting the mind away from one undesirable thought was the way to turn it in the desirable direction. The senses have been compared to Pashu, animals, whose vision is externally oriented. Man should strive to be a master of the senses and not their slave. For this purpose, first of all, man should not pamper the senses. He should realize that the pleasure derived from the senses is momentary and ends only in grief. If the senses are kept busy